Hello and welcome into another Patriots Hub Podcast. Barth Matt Dolloff with you from 98.5 thesportshub.com. The final time, I guess pending something spectacular, some big time news, the final time we will come to you during this pre-draft process. Here doing the show remote today. It's Marathon Monday. Everything's a little different, but that doesn't mean we don't have takes. And that's pretty much what this show is going to be, Matt. I know we got a little intel from Adam Schefter this morning. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter expected to go top 3. We kind of knew that. He mentioned that Kayshon Boutte could be available for trade. Figures about anybody on the roster is available for a trade with the new regime. But outside of that, this is mostly just going to be empty the notebook. That's what this show is going to be. Any takes that you want to hammer home, maybe that we've talked about, but you want to make sure you get out there before the draft. Anything we haven't gotten to that you want to discuss, that you want to make sure you get out there as part of the public record before the draft comes. That's what we're going to be doing because it is, and I should have started this way, it is draft week. Happy draft week, Dolph.
Happy draft week, Barthy. I don't know what the hell you're going to do with your life after this week is over, but it's a big week. Week of the year. Might as well be Christmas for you. Look, I feel like it's sort of playing out the way we all expected. Like, I think after all the weeks and months of pontificating on whether this guy could fall to the Patriots, this or that guy could be available. The top 3 is the top 3, and I feel like this is what it was pretty much going to be, especially once we found out that Cam Ward was pretty much locked in as the number 1 pick for the Titans. Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, whatever order they go in, that's the clear next 2 prospects. Then after that, there's a drop-off. And everyone from, people say like 4 to 10, 4 to 15, whatever you want to call it, like those guys are all in sort of the same group with each other. And like, that's probably why it's going to be hard, probably impossible for the Patriots to trade out of the number 4 pick. So they find themselves in that sort of tough no man's land kind of spot where like, not the most desirable spot to be. They're in number 4 and it feels like, basically a 3-person draft when you talk about the top end. No doubt prospects that are going to go at the top. And like most of the reports, I don't know if it's most of the reports, but a lot of the insider reports, they're hammering home Will Campbell to the Patriots. Like I think a lot of guys are sort of setting themselves up to be horribly wrong, which is why I think that they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong. I think the intel is good that they've liked Will Campbell all along. They haven't really cared about the arm length. And I feel like he's their guy. And I'm still going to have a different tackle going to them at number 4 in my final mock draft, which comes out this Wednesday, because I want to have fun with it. I already had Will Campbell going to them at 4 in my first mock draft. So I'll say, like, it'll just be like, this is what it might look like if they pull the rug out from under us. They still go tackle, but it's a different guy than you were expecting. But feels like it's going to be Will Campbell day for the Patriots on Thursday night.
We will both have our final mock drafts on Wednesday, so a little bit. We'll give you kind of both sides of it with that one, but yeah, it's a tough spot to be. And I put out my last NFL mock draft. That's up now on 98.5 thesportshub.com. And Matt, you know this. I usually try to do one, whether it's an NFL mock draft, whether it's a Patriots. I usually try to do one of each, honestly, where there's a trade, either a trade up or a trade down. Even last year with the team clearly needing a quarterback, I had them moving down to 6. I think I had them taking Malik Neighbors, if I remember correctly. But like I usually try to do that every year. Trade up this year was never happening. That was never realistic. It doesn't make any sense. You're mortgaging the future of the franchise for one player when this team needs multiple players. But I'm going into it like I haven't done a trade down. I should do it. I haven't done it yet. And so I'm working on it over the weekend. And it was like, all right, well, Bears trading up from 10 for Genty. That could be fun. And I, texted some people their thoughts. No, you can't do that. It's not realistic. Okay. Well, the Panthers moving up to 8 for McMillan, but he's going to get to 8 anyway. There's not a ton of incentive to do that. Do I do the in-division trade with the Jets? No, I don't think they would do that. All right. Like, could they go back to like 15 with the Falcons? I don't think they're going to move back that far. They're not going to get remotely what it's worth. And so, I mean, if you go look at it, the Patriots are picking at 4. It's just, unless somebody gets really stupid, and that includes the Patriots.
Yeah.
One team somewhere has to get very stupid for the Patriots to trade back. Nothing felt realistic enough that I was comfortable publishing it, basically.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
I just don't see where the deal comes from.
Yeah, no, like, look, it's the good teams that are at the bottom that would try to trade up, right? It's the smart teams that are below the dumb teams in the draft order. So, like, logically speaking, is there a good team that's going to trade up with a bad team at the top of the draft? So, yeah, like we might see a historically low amount of activity in the first, call it the first 2 or 3 rounds, like first 2 days of the draft in terms of moving up and down. Like maybe you'll see guys move up a spot or two. Like you see that a lot where like, the guys really, really getting close to them and they just got to move up that last 1 or 2 spots and like, jump one team at the last second to get the guy they want. You might see a little bit of that, but you're not going to see that big trade up or like the big trade down in the first round. And it's because of the stuff that I was saying before. It's that a lot of these guys are sort of the same, and a lot of teams are maybe just looking at it like we're just going to take the best player available. There's no one in this first round, top half of the first round, that we really want to target, that we want to like package picks together to move up. Like you just don't have that player, and it's like they don't play premium positions. Like Ashton Jetty doesn't play a premium position. I think he's going to be a great player, but he's not necessarily a guy you trade up for. And a team that's like knocking on the door of a Super Bowl and could use him as that sort of cherry on top for the offense, they might not have to move up for him. He might slip because he plays running back. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys they're going to see you're going to see a lot of teams stay put and just take the best player available. There's not going to be a lot of surprise in terms of who's moving up and moving down. You might see surprise in terms of who guys take. But it might be pretty straightforward for us. I think it's going to be on the clock, make the pick. On the clock, make the pick. I think there's going to be a lot of that, especially on the first night, I think.
So I have a couple first round bold predictions I want to get to, but when we were texting about what we wanted to do for the show, you mentioned, so you have your next mock draft coming out on Wednesday. Your last one came out last Wednesday. And I always try to hammer home the point of the exercise of the mock draft. Why do you do so many mock drafts? Well, one, because I need content. It's my job to write. And two, because people like it. And three, it's all about learning different situations. You learn different players. Okay, well, if this player goes here, like, all right, I'm working under the assumption that this player goes at 35. What if he goes at 25? How does that change this? The quarterbacks are a big example of this. I definitely explored a few different situations with the quarterbacks in my mock draft I put out. You were saying as you went through your last one, or maybe it was writing this upcoming one. I actually don't remember exactly what you said, but probably both. You developed some new takes on the draft. So Dolloff Mock Draft 3.0 teaches us what?
That after the first 30, 35 picks, it gets real dicey, Barth. Like you go through these players and like, this is the exercise that I'm sure you do every year. But I really have to do it every year because I don't watch a ton of college football. I'm not super big on, all the draft prospects until like we get really close to the draft. So I really got to dive into the scouting reports and then pull up the YouTube film, find out, which games they didn't play so well in, see if I can get a look at that. And, you go through these scouting reports on these players and like, even in the 30s, Barth, you get the players that like, like they don't play a position that you're enticed about, running backs, guards, whatever, or they just have a flaw that might hold them back from being a premium player or even like a good starter. They just lack sort of that, the thing that you would ideally want in a guy, slow receivers, tackles with short arms, guards with a lack of athleticism. Like they all have flaws, and it's like it's really hard to sort of identify like we want this guy because he has everything we need. He checks all the boxes. Like there's really not many guys that check all the boxes. You're going to have to accept that guys are going to come with an empty box that isn't checked at some point. You got to sort of figure out what you want to live with. And that's sort of what I learned in this next mock draft that's coming out later this week. What I wanted to do was have the Patriots stay at 4 and stay at 38, and then see if they could move up again into the second round and end up with 2 picks in the second round. And I ended up doing it. I don't know if the trade up that I did is relatively realistic. But you learn that once you get past that top 30, 35, it gets real tough to identify a guy that really like fits your need and has the kind of abilities you want, because you just have to sort of accept some kind of flaw with these picks. And so that's the sort of thing that you expect on day 3, but it's just happening a lot earlier in this draft. That's what it feels like to me.
And honestly, the thing about checking the boxes, that applies to this whole draft. And sorry to bring it back to the top, but it's just it's such a good point about how people need to look at this year's class. And I saw there was a report or McShay said on a podcast or something today or over the weekend, and it's out today. I actually literally just saw the clip before he came on, so I don't know the entire background, but I know it's McShay, who basically was like, yeah, I've talked to people about Will Campbell at 4. He is the top tackle in this class, but he would have been the 4th or 5th tackle in last year's class. Okay. Well, if Joe Alt was in this draft, I would take him at 4 over Will Campbell. If Olu Fashanu was in this draft, I would take him at 4 over Will Campbell. I don't think anybody's debating that. If I think Caden Proctor, who's projected to be the top tackle next year from Alabama, if Caden Proctor was in this draft, I haven't watched a ton of him, but from what I hear, I would take Caden Proctor over Will Campbell. But those guys aren't here. You got to work with the board that you have. And if there's no trade down, yeah, you're going to be answering questions about whoever you take at 4, certainly at 38, further down. That's just what this draft is. It's kind of a, I don't know, you tell me, Dolph, if this sounds too like finger waggy or whatever. That's not the right term, but like
finger waggy.
I don't know, like talking down to, it's an eat your vegetables kind of draft. You got to eat your vegetables. And I mean that in terms of the players that are there. And also I think the Patriots are going to hammer the trenches and not players you can draft in fantasy and not players who you're betting on. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have a bad draft. They can actually have a very good draft if they do things correctly. But
no, there's not a lot of nice steaks in this draft. There's not, there's not a nice hearty steak. There's not a lot of candy, not a lot of sweets in this draft. Yeah, a lot of vegetables, a lot of meat and potatoes. Yeah, not what the hold the meat. a lot of potatoes and veggies. I think that's a fair point.
You know who seems like a potatoes kind of guy? Mike Vrabel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think Mike Vrabel would say.
Was Mitch Moreland the steak and potatoes guy from the Red Sox? You remember that?
Oh, he might have been. Yeah,
they asked him about the TB12 method, and he goes, it's steak and potatoes. I don't know.
Yeah, what's that? Nightshades? What are you talking about? Look, I feel like the Will Campbell stuff has gone too far at this point, and that just happens. It tends to happen every year. The closer you get to the draft, and you get into this no man's land of like, all right, now we wait for the draft. Like, what are we going to talk about? It's almost gone to the point where people are like, I just don't think Will Campbell's good, or like, I don't think Will Campbell's talented. Will Campbell is talented. He has a lot of athletic ability. And it's just those short arms that are sort of holding him back from being, I think, would be like a no-doubt left tackle prospect. And just because he's not Joe Alt and he's not Penei Sewell does not mean that he's not a good tackle prospect. And I think he's the best. I think he's still the best tackle prospect in this draft based on the total package. And look, you might have times where the short arms sort of give him trouble. I think that's totally fair. And maybe later in his career, like you end up moving to guard. Like I guess I can't totally rule that out. I just don't see it as like he's going to get drafted and he's going to be a complete disaster at guard. He can't figure out how to do things because he's played left tackle throughout his college career. He played against a lot of future NFL talent at LSU in the SEC, and he was good. And so like I think it's gone too far with like people just don't think he's even good. Like he's going to be a bust. Like he's going to be a good player. Like I just think like the measurables might hold him back from being a great, blue chip, like decade plus all pro caliber. Like, yeah, I get it. It's unfortunate if you can't get that guy. But it just goes back to the start of your take, which is that like, this is that kind of draft where you can't look at this draft to compare it to previous drafts that had a deeper pool of high end, no doubt prospects at the top. They just don't have it this year. And it's just like, who's the 4th best guy in this draft? Like if someone says like you're completely dismissing Will Campbell, I ask him like, then who's your guy? Who are you taking? Guarantee whoever they say, it's going to be a guy that I can poke a hole in it. Oh, Mason Graham, he's a little small. He's not as big as people thought. Ashton Genty, he's a running back. Armand Membu, I don't know if he can play left tackle. Like there's questions about all these guys. And so I feel like Will Campbell has been sort of singled out because he's been such a big part of the conversation. I think no matter what happens, no matter who the Patriots take here, there's going to be questions about that pick because it's just that kind of year.
And to phrase that another way, I honestly care less about it's not that I care less. The more important part of the conversation to me, and this goes back to what you're talking about when you get past, what'd you say, pick like 25, right? Or 35 or whatever it was.
30.
Yeah. So
late first.
The conversation to me isn't so much, all right, well, who do you like it for better than Campbell? Because in a bubble, I can make an argument for Jalen Walker. I make an argument for Tyler Warren. I make an argument for Ashton Genty. It's not necessarily one I would use. Like, it wouldn't be my final argument to draft the guy, but like I can make the argument. But that's in a bubble. The bigger part of the question to me is, okay, you don't like Campbell at 4. Fine, you're going to take somebody else. All right. What else are you doing at tackle? Not who else are you going to take at 4. Who else are you going to take at tackle? Because Josh Simmons is going to go. Connerly's going to go. Banks obviously is going to go. Ursery, I'm like 50-50 that he gets to 38. And then it drops right off. And I think it was Matt Miller who was tweeting about this yesterday, that there's concern in the league about how thin this tackle class is. We saw that run last year, and that was with depth at tackle. This year, there's no depth. Like, there might be 6 tackles that go in the first round. There really might. What's going to help the Patriots is, so here's what it comes down to. And I wanted to spend some of this podcast, Matt, we can kind of transition here, talking about the first round as a whole, because we've kind of been in this Patriots bubble for the last 4 months, and I get why, and I'm okay with that, but I want to kind of step out here as we get closer to the draft. Sure. I'm gonna pull up the exact tweet from Matt Miller, but it was a good point that, like, there are some premium positions this year that are thin. Offensive tackle, he mentions, cornerback, and then tight end's not a premium position, but he mentions that as well. But like, it's going to come down to, for the Patriots, if you want Ariante Ursery to fall to 38, or if you're looking at, like, if you take Campbell at the top and you're trying to get an edge rusher and you want a guy like Nick Scorton to fall to 38, or Donovan Ezaraku to fall to 38, it's going to come down to, where do we see the run late in the first round? So, for instance, Tyler Warren's probably going to go top 10. Colson Loveland's probably going to go at least top 20, if not top 15. The next projected tight end is Mason Taylor, who on the consensus big board right now is sitting right around 60. Are we going to go, what would that be, 35, 40 picks without a tight end in a copycat league the year after Brock Bowers broke out? Does somebody get really desperate? Maybe it's not in the first round, but maybe it's 33, 34, 35, somewhere in there, right? At corner, Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson are both projected top 20 picks. The next group of guys, and there's not a ton of consensus here on this group, but it's guys like Azare Thomas. Who else was in there? Maxwell Hairston, Benjamin Morrison. There's like 4 or 5 corners all projected to go from like 40 to 60. But there's some quarterback needy teams sitting there at the back of the draft. Does one of them move up and kind of start the run on those guys late? The quarterbacks. All right, let's say somebody tries to jump the Steelers at 21. Shedeur goes in the late teens. Now the Steelers are taking Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. And then does a 4th quarterback sneak in? Like, the Patriots need to hope that it's one of, and the runs can happen concurrently. We could really go like quarterback corner, tackle, like, it's all about which run gets pushed into the back end of the first round. And that's what you're looking for as a Patriots fan. Once we get to, like, I would say it really starts with 18 with the Seahawks. That's where things might start getting weird. And you're just hoping that it's not the tackles that are a part of that run. If you're
well, with quarterbacks, I'm thinking, Giants, Raiders, Steelers. Like, they could all end up taking a quarterback with their first or second pick. The Giants, I know they hosted a bunch of quarterbacks. I don't think they're going with Shedeur Sanders at 3. I think they're going Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whoever's there, at 3. But then they have 34 and 65. So I would expect them to take a quarterback with one of those picks. Maybe move up in the late first. But my gut, Barthy, after going through the especially this last mock draft exercise, where, like, I'm staying at 38. I'm going to see what happens. I think Ursery is going to go late first round. I think Connerly is a lock to go late first round.
Yeah.
And even the edge rushers you mentioned, Ezaraku from BC, who the Patriots did get a look at their pro day, and Nick Scorton, who I had going to the Patriots at 38 in my first mock draft. I feel less strongly about him even getting there at this point. They might have to move up if they want to get him. I just feel those guys play premium positions, so I feel like they're all going to go, late first, and you could even call it into 32, 33 range very early in the second round. I feel like those guys are going to go early, and especially the tackles, because it's not so deep. I think you're going to see one team is going to jump at, call it Josh Connerly at 18, 19. I don't even know. I don't know what team is there, but just
Seahawks are at 18, and they're a good candidate to trade back because their biggest need is guard. So that would be a good spot.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that you could see a team like, they make the plunge on a Josh Connerly or a Donovan Izaraku like a little earlier than you think, and that sort of sparks it. That starts the chain of events where guys are like, all right, now we got to get on these tackles because they're going to be gone. I just feel like that's how it's going to go, and you could see that with the quarterbacks too, with the teams that they've gotten to the point where now we have to take one of these guys relatively early, and I just think you're going to see those premium positions go early. And that's why it's so tough for the Patriots at 38. It's like you get to that point in the draft, like all these top guys at the premium spots might be gone by then, and so they might have to take best player available, and he might not play that exactly that premium position that everybody's talking about. And so that's sort of my hint to stay tuned for this mock draft 3.0. It's going to be kind of a bloodbath at that 38 range.
Real quick, the tough thing about that, so you have like the edge in particular. You have Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, James Pierce, Donovan Ezaraku, Nick Sport, and Landon Jackson. Those guys are all probably going to go between like 20 and 40, 20 and 45. It's just a matter of who falls. What's tough for the Patriots is, yes, I think one of those guys gets to 38. If it's Nick Scorton, great. If it's Donovan Ezaraku, great. If it's James Pierce, he's a guy that has serious questions about his work ethic, and he's not as talented as Abdul Carter. Are they going to take him, or will he be on their board? Mike Green, talented, there's some off-field stuff there. You can go look it up involving sexual assault. Like that's generally a non-starter for them, right?
No,
so are the guys that fall, are they even going to be on their board would be the question. And to the tough part of 38 as a whole, I'm going to be a little hyperbolic here. So just, okay. But for all we've talked about winning that game and the Patriots falling from 1 to 4, they also fell from 34 to 38 in the second round, which that could end up being a massive difference too. So for whatever that's worth, that hurt them as well. And I've said I think that win ultimately hurts them the most in 2026 next year, because they would have had another first round pick after trading down this year. But like that wouldn't it be nice to be 3 spots higher in the second round? Like how much of a difference would that make right now?
Exactly. Well, you just said it. It would be nice. And again, like I'm not going to overreact to them, hurting their position in a relatively weak draft. Like I feel like people really sort of went overboard with them dropping from 1 to 4. Like, yes, ideally they just dropped that last game, and Joe Milton didn't all of a sudden turn into Dan Marino out there all of a sudden, and then they get the first pick. Like that would have been an ideal spot. But like I'm just not going to act like they ruined the franchise because they dropped a few spots in this one draft that happens to be a weak draft in the first place. Like people on Twitter that day, like there is no overstating the damage they've done to the franchise with this win. No, you can overstate it. You kind of just did it. So yeah, like I try not to overreact to like it's a year-to-year thing. I try not to overreact to 1 year dropping a few spots, but you do, once you get into the weeds of this particular draft, Barth, you start to sort of groan like, oh man, it would have been nice to be a few spots higher, especially the first 2 rounds. Like if they were at 1 and 34 is what it would have been. Like, yeah, that would have been a lot nicer. Would have been a lot easier to put together the mock drafts. I'm not going to dispute that.
Any other new developing takes here late in the process from you?
Yeah, another thing that came out of putting a mock draft 3.0 together, I've sort of warmed up to the idea of addressing the skill spots on day 3. I feel like the first 2 days, you got to address the trenches. I feel like that's where you're deepest in the draft and at edge rusher, I think. And so I think they have to address that. I think they could get an interior defender as well, and of course tackle. And so I feel like that's where they should go. I think that's just my opinion, but that's where I think they should go on the first 2 days of the draft, not just in the first round. And then you get into the 4th round, 5th round. Like I think there's some intriguing prospects in there. Some guys they met with. Trevor Etienne, the running back from Georgia, they just met with pretty recently. I feel like he's a good candidate for them to go in the 4th or 5th round. There's a tight end I think they might like, Thomas Fadone from Nebraska, who's been dealing with injuries, but he's got a chance to be a pretty good, receiving tight end, and they could get him on day 3. And so I feel like that's a sort of a decent spot for them to address those skill spots. And there's of course wide receiver. I just feel like this year wide receiver is another one where it's like you don't want to overspend on a wide receiver in this particular draft. There's no perfect prospect. I certainly don't want them to take one. I don't want them taking one at 4. I don't want them taking one trading up at the end of the first round to get one or take one to 38.
Even if somebody falls, even if like Matthew Golden falls.
Well, if Matthew Golden falls to 38, I could see.
What if he falls like 28? You can get up relatively easily.
I'd rather move up for the tackle if that's going to be the spot.
Well, all right. Not to
but I'm thinking like
here. Will Campbell at 4, Matthew Golden falls.
Yeah, like I guess I could see that, but like I just don't see that happening either. I feel like Golden's going to be one of the guys that also goes early because he's one of the only guys that plays that premium position who has a really good chance to be a really good player. I feel like everyone else has flaws.
The mock draft me and Cerrone did yesterday on the air?
Oh, I missed it. What happened?
I had him going to the Raiders. I had him going to the Raiders.
Oh, really?
Or no, that was the one I published this morning. I had him. The Raiders trade back to like 10, and they take Golden at 10. I think I had him going 8 to the Panthers in that one. I think he's going to go sneaky high. I do.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just don't see that happening, and so I feel like I don't want them to reach for a guy.
That time of year, you got to twist the knife a little bit.
Yeah, get to day 3 and take a flyer on a guy. Like I would understand if Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel go into this draft saying we want to get our guy at wide receiver, but I would hope they invest in that guy on day 3. Like you could do it in the 4th round. Do it. They're at 106. Like do it at 106 if you want. I just feel like that's a good spot where you can just take a chance on guys that have upside. Their draft stock fell for one reason or another. Just don't overspend on those spots. Like invest in the trenches on the first day, like first couple days. Like you need those guys, and that's where you're sort of deepest, especially on the defensive line. So that's where I sort of hope they go. If they end up with one of the higher end receiver prospects somehow, I'd be happy. I just don't think realistically that's going to happen. So I would like to see them invest in the skill. Wait until day 3 to invest in the skill spots.
Eat your vegetables, right? It's interesting you say that. So
get your candy at the end.
We did this exercise, and we can do it here in a second, but we did it yesterday on Sunday Kickoff, which was like, all right, Patriots have 4 top 100 picks, assuming they make that many, right? What are the 4 positions you think they're going to address? I did have running back on there. I didn't have wide receiver, and I kind of had some people be like, what are you talking about? No receiver in the top 100? And yeah, it would be kind of weird. The way this draft is set up, I could see it. Now, I'm not totally against them doing it. If Jalen Noel falls to 69, or you can trade up a little bit and get him, or Kyle Williams or a guy like that, maybe, if they're in on Luther Burden, I don't know where they're at, where they're going to be at with him personality-wise, but like if they're in on him and he falls to 38, like I would like to see them, if somebody falls, take advantage of that, especially if they've already gotten the tackle. But I could see them waiting. I could see them waiting. If I had to guess what skill position they're going to draft the highest, I think it's going to be running back. I do. I think in skill position, you're talking running back, tight end, receiver.
You mean the highest according to like expectations?
No, I mean like which of those 3 positions do they draft first?
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, sorry.
I think there's a chance it's running back, and that's not Ash and Genty at 4, but. And probably not even 38, but like Dylan Sampson, they've met with at 39 would be a really good fit. If one of the Ohio State guys falls, I could see them liking both of those guys. I don't think Henderson's going to, but maybe Judkins falls. I'm not entirely ruling out Cam Scadabo. I think he's a little bit older, and maybe he doesn't have the longevity, like the projected longevity you might want a top 100 pick, but I'm not ruling him out.
I think Amari Hampton,
somebody in the chat brings up. That might be part of it. Amari and Hampton, somebody brings up in the chat. I don't think he's getting a 38, but if he gets a 38, like that would maybe be the one. But I would not be surprised if they wait on wide receiver. It's not a great class. I don't think they're going to force another guy who's just going to be stuck in the middle of the depth chart. If they're going to take a wide receiver, it has to be somebody who brings something they don't have. And there's not a lot of guys like that in this draft. And people are going to roll their eyes and say, what do you mean? Like all they have is guys who suck. How does nobody in the draft offer something they don't have? A lot of these receivers might suck. Not all of them. Not all of them. And again, if they pick their spots, like there are situations where it makes sense. I don't need them to get another guy that's going to middle in on the depth chart in the 3rd, 4th spot. And we're going to spend the first month and a half of the year asking where he is. And then he's going to play. And we're going to say he's playing too much because he's not ready. Like we've done that time and time again the last 4 or 5 years. So Jalen Noel brings something they don't have with his explosiveness and the projected volume that he has. I think Kyle Williams, his ability to get open at all 3 levels, brings something they don't have. To your point, you want to go later on day 3. You want to try to get an X. Torrey Horton, Dante Thornton. Are these guys going to be superstars? No. I don't think that guy's in this draft. So you got to find a role player who adds something that you don't have. I will give some of the people, if they want to go X, I like Trey Harris. I like Elick Aomanor. Jaden Higgins, I don't think I'm as high on as some other people, but I wouldn't hate that pick. But like, there are guys in there that can do that. But just getting another guy who's kind of, all right, well, he plays a bunch of spots and he's not super athletic, but he has the versatility and blah, blah, blah. Like, all right, fine. You have 3 or 4 of those guys right now. And I think you adding another person who's not going to necessarily get the reps or anything like that, I don't know how that helps. There's only so many spots you have too. People are going to roll their eyes at this, but let's count it. Stephon Diggs, I'm actually going to put to the side because he might open on PUP, so you don't need a roster spot for him right away. You can figure that out. Pop Douglas is going to make the team. Mac Hollins is going to make the team. I get yelled at every time I say this, but for better or worse, Jalen Polk is going to make the team. Like, he's a second-round pick last year. I do think he's going to make the team. How much will he play? Will he be involved? I don't know. I think he's going to make the team. That's 3. I know I'm missing somebody there.
Baker?
I don't know that Baker's a lock. But
he's not a lock, no.
The fact is, if they think they can trade Kayshon Boutte, that means they think he's good enough to roster. So if he doesn't get traded, he's making a team. That's 4. So you're going to draft
Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, maybe. I don't.
Oh, and Bourne. I do think Bourne's going to make the team. I know people push back on that. So that's
the difference between I think he's going to make the team and he's a lock to make the team.
Right. Let me put it. There's not a lot of spots. There's not a lot of spots available in that room. So if you're drafting like 2 or 3 guys, or you're drafting a guy that isn't going to play, like you're not necessarily helping yourself out, especially in top 100. This is kind of my beyond. They need a tackle. This is kind of my big picture take on the Patriots draft, Matt. Their top 100 picks, however many there end up being, should be at least 3. Be nice if they can get to 5. Their top 100 picks need to play in 2025. Not Josh Simmons recovering from injury. Not a wide receiver who's more of a project and you're going to get in next year. They need the injection of talent. Their top 100 picks need to play. They don't all need to play 100%. Ideally, the first round pick does 38. I think if you can get him in 70s, 70 to 80% usage, depending on the position, would be great. And then those day 3 picks, I'm hoping at the least are like heavy rotational players, like a third down back or a third down pass rusher, right? Guys are going to play in key situations, maybe a deep safety, somebody like that. The one exception I'll carve out is if they draft a right tackle, like Ozzie Trapillo, who the plan is he's going to come in and learn behind Morgan Moses. That's the one exception I'll make to that rule. But besides that, the top 100 picks need to be playing. If you're drafting a receiver who maybe won't compete with Kayshon Boutte for the 3rd spot before Stephon Diggs comes back, I think you can do better. Maybe not at that position, but I think you can do better overall the way this draft is set up.
Yeah, like exactly. So it sounds like you kind of agree with me, but like, yeah, maybe if it's Jalen Noel or if it's Kyle Williams, in that 3rd round, I wouldn't hate that. I just don't need them to take this. Is especially why another reason that I love the Stephon Diggs signing is that you're going in this draft. I feel like they don't have to draft the receiver.
Great point.
Like they could come out of this draft and not draft the receiver and maybe sign a UDFA just to have another body at camp. And like I'm okay with that because you just ran through it. Like a lot of these guys, they're flawed, they're redundant, they're not necessarily going to bring anything different to the table. Like that's why I feel like most of these receiver picks, especially the ones that are going to be in their range on day 2, like you're not going to get a guy that's going to be that much better than what you already have. And so like this is a year where I feel like you could sort of punt at the position and like invest in the trenches, get your left tackle, solidify your offensive line, solidify your pass rush. You're going to be much, much better in the trenches. You're going to be much, much better on defense. You're going to protect Drake May better. You have Stephon Diggs. I think if all those things sort of fall into place, you're going to move the ball a lot better. You don't have to reach for another receiver when you already have 7 guys basically that are like in competition for spots and like are sort of all going to bring a lot of the same things that you might get from a guy like Jalen Noel or whatever. Whoever you want to name.
Well,
like,
I
can't look at it like they need a receiver, so you got to take a guy because they need a receiver. Like this isn't the year to do that.
So I think this is where we disagree. I think we agree on like 80% of it. But there are some receivers I would count as an exception. I think if they draft Jalen Noel, he's going to be on the field a lot and he's going to play and he brings an explosiveness that they don't have.
Sure.
So if it's Noel,
he was in mock draft 2.0.
Right.
Noel.
If it's Noel, great. I got to pull up the list of
1.0. I had Jalen Noel in 1.0 and Kyle Williams 2.0. I would take those guys, not just to be clear.
Okay, yeah. So like those are the kind of guys because they give you something, mainly speed, that you don't have and you need on offense. But for a guy who's like more of a technician, so a guy like a Xavier Restrepo, right? Who might go day 3 now, but like or a guy like Savion Williams, who I love as a prospect, but he's going to be tough to figure out. It's going to take some time. Like that one doesn't make as much sense for me. You know, a guy like if they view, I said I like A.O. Manor. If they view him as a big slot instead of an X, I'm good. I'm good there. Like it's just got to be something that you got to add something you don't have, not just what you think is a better version of a guy you already have. All right, let's do some quick predictions here before we wrap this thing up. I mentioned that thing me and Cerrone did at the end of Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. If you want to check that out, by the way, it's up on the Sports Hub YouTube page after you're done with this show. Patriots have 4 top 100 picks. We'll see if they end up making all those, if they make them in the spots. Oh, this is one other thing I wanted to mention. The Patriots should be trying to trade up because for all we've bemoaned about how hard it's going to be to trade down, should be able to trade up for cheap. They're positioned well to trade up. They have that extra 3rd round pick. They should do it. So maybe they end up making 3 top 100 picks instead of 4, 38 and 77, become 1 pick. I don't know, but like 4 top 100 picks at face value. Give me 4 positions that you think, not what you would do, that you think they address if they make 4 top 100 picks.
4 top 100 picks. Okay. Well, so they have 3 top 100 picks as of right now?
4.
4? Okay.
4, 38, 69, 77. They have the 2/3.
Yeah. So offensive tackle, call it offensive tackle, I suppose. It could be a left tackle or a right tackle. Yeah. Edge rusher. Okay, okay. So now we're getting into maybe the 69, 77 range. I'll go ahead and predict they take one of your running back ideas in the 3rd round, call it. And then I don't know who they could take for like a guard on day 2. Right. That would make sense, but so I just feel like they're going to go trench heavy. Yeah, guard or interior, whether it's guard or D tackle, they're going to do one of those things.
I said yesterday on Sunday Kickoff they're going to take a left tackle, and this isn't necessarily in order. Maybe they do something else at the top and then trade up for Ursery or Connerly, but I think they're going to take a left tackle. I think they're going to take a defensive lineman, whether it be a defensive tackle, edge rusher, something like that. I think they're going to take another offensive lineman, a right tackle, guard, center, something. And I think they're going to take a running back. And then I'll tag on, because when I say that, people get upset about receiver. I do think they're going to take an early day 3 receiver. I do think that's kind of the sweet spot. If there is a sweet spot for receivers in this draft, I think it's right around pick 50, where obviously they're not at. So maybe if they make a trade, and then the top of day 3, Torrey Horton. If there is a sleeper, I don't think there's a lot of sleepers. I don't think there's a lot of diamond in the rough, hidden gem kind of receivers in this draft.
No, not a hidden gem.
If there is one, I think it's Torrey Horton. Maybe Xavier Restrepo. They throw him in that slot role. And then if he falls a little bit, Kyle Williams. Like I think 106 might actually be your sweet spot for receivers. So I still want them to get
take a guy at 106. Yeah. I shouldn't read the comments, but there's a guy in the comments disagreeing. No, I disagree with him. They need an explosive receiver.
I wanted to bring this comment up.
I didn't say they don't need an explosive receiver. They need an explosive receiver. The point is that guy's not there in this draft outside of maybe 2 or 3 guys that fall to them.
So the comments
skeptic, I'm just saying, I just want to clarify what I'm saying. They obviously need an explosive wide receiver. I'm just saying I don't know that they could get that guy in this particular draft. So take a chance on a guy early day 3 for sure. A guy I like Barth.
Sorry, just to react to this too again. No, I agree. It's
my name's Matt, by the way, the guy on the left.
Well, there was disagreement over which left he meant in the chat, whether it was our left or their left. So it could have been. I would agree. I do agree they need an explosive wide receiver. There's not a lot of explosive or tight end, fine, but especially receiver. There's not a ton of explosive wide receivers in this draft. Like Jalen Noel is one, Kyle Williams is one. There's not a lot. And that's basically my point. Don't take a wide receiver who's like a technician. You have enough of those guys. They're not even great technicians. Get the athlete. That's basically what we're saying. If you're going to take, or what I'm saying, if you're going to take a receiver that high,
and another guy I like, Barth, from my research that I wouldn't mind if they took, that I think could be, sort of underdrafted and be better than his draft spot, is Jalen Royals.
I was waiting for
Utah State. I think he could be. He's not necessarily a stud wide receiver, but like a guy that, he goes in the third round, like a Terry McLaurin type, where like he goes in the third round and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, this guy can play like that. I feel like he could be a guy that sort of outperforms his draft stock. That's another name that I would like for the Patriots to get. So like Jalen Noel, Kyle Williams, Jalen Royals. Like if they take one of those guys, I'd be happy. I'm just saying I don't want them to overdraft a guy because they need a guy. Yes, they need that explosive receiver, but don't overdraft a guy who's not that kind of explosive guy that you want. Like try to see if you can take a chance on a day 3 guy if you're going to do that.
See, that's what kills me about Luther Burden. Luther Burden might be the most explosive receiver in this draft. I don't think he's at least in the conversation. But there's some questions about, he had some, I don't want to call them meltdowns. He had some outbursts on the sideline last year when things weren't going well for Missouri. I don't blame him. Like Drew Lock forgot how to play football. I can imagine that would be frustrating. I want to actually pull up his Lance Zierlein scouting report, because
some of the best receivers ever have meltdowns. So
this isn't like somebody who has legal issues or anything like that. Here's what Zierlein wrote. He takes snaps off in short circuits routes, not the primary option, but he can separate and succeed on all 3 levels when it's his time. And then he quotes an NFL national scout who says, I think he got bored with that offense. His playing style is like Jerry Jeudy, but with Amon-Ra St. Brown hands and toughness. So, okay, this guy gets frustrated when he doesn't get the ball a lot. All right. If he's here in Josh McDaniels' offense, that really should not be a problem. And if it comes up, it's more an issue with the coaching than it is with Luther Burden. So
or the guy that's covering him. Like, it's not going to be like they're going to ignore him. Like, if he's talented, he's getting open. And they're going to throw him the ball.
And Drake May's better than Drew Lock. So, like, if they're worried about the culture side of it, now Mike Vrabel said last week, we can't accomplish what we wanted with just a bunch of good dudes. And it kind of sounded like the question was about Abdul Carter, but I think it could apply to Luther Burden. And by the way, by all accounts, Luther Burden, like, awesome person, does a ton in the community, all that. I think he just got annoyed because his team was losing. It's kind of like Stephon Diggs. He's not a locker room cancer. He just doesn't like to lose. Fine. I want guys that hate losing. I think they could maybe use a guy or two like that in that locker room. So that was a whole side tangent. But like, I'm all for them adding explosive receiver. There just aren't that many. I would love it if they came away with Luther Burden, man. That dude can freaking play. That dude's awesome. I'm a big fan of his.
That's another guy. Yeah, no, I think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NFL. I just don't think realistically he's going to be there for him at the spots they're at.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the final prediction, give me a bold non-Patriots prediction for the first round.
A bold non-Patriots prediction. All right, I'll go Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. Is that bold enough?
Ooh, yeah. They've kind of been out of that lottery. They paid Geno Smith $75 million.
I think they could pull a Falcons with them when they took Penix.
And that would be great for the Patriots, by the way, because now, what are the Steelers doing at 21? That puts another quarterback up. If the Giants and Browns don't take a quarterback, are they trying to trade up from that back end of the second round to move up? And that's going to make some of the picks later cheaper. That would be
push some trench guys down.
Push some trench guys down. Or this other kind of theory-ish thing I have is like, if Patriots try and trade up from 38, right? But the Giants and Browns are trying to trade up for a quarterback. Well, you can let them trade up for a quarterback because they're not taking anybody that you want, obviously. And also, they're going to take out a couple teams that are desperate to trade back. So now if you're trying to move up from 38, you can wait till that dust settles, not lose the players you're trying to get. And the teams that are up there maybe aren't asking as much to move back because they're not picking as high. So it could actually make a trade up if the Giants, Browns, or both move up into the 20s for a quarterback from 33, 34. It could actually mean a trade up from 38 costs less for the Patriots.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, anything to save the Patriots a buck, right? Some people would be happy with that.
Yeah. So, Well, it would ultimately be more expensive for the team because the contract's going to cost more at wherever you're trading out, 26, 27, 28. But my bold prediction for the first round, and I guess for the draft, is I had a couple. I said Isaiah Bond goes top 12. That's one of them. I think Mason Taylor could go in the first round. That's one. QB3 will not be Jackson Dart. It's going to be Jalen Milroe, and he is going to be a first-round pick. I think the Browns move up from, I think they're 33, 34. With them and the Giants are there. I forget which one's which, but the Browns move up 22, 23, 24, 25 range, somewhere in there. They're obviously not, Steelers aren't going to give him a quarterback at 21. But the Browns move up and they take Jalen Milroe because Tommy Rees, who's the OC for the Browns now, was Milroe's OC when he had his breakout year in 23 at Alabama. He's gotten more out of Milroe than anybody. Does he continue to try to build on that? So that's my bold prediction. Jalen Milroe, QB3, first-round pick. Maybe the Giants just jump it too because they like his athleticism. That's kind of a take on the take. I'll stamp Jalen Milroe, first-round pick, QB3, and then what is it called? Then I forget the terminology, but like I'll double down on him going to the Browns.
Yeah, you double down. Yeah, honestly, Barthy, I haven't done enough research on the other teams to have a lot of bold predictions about non-Patriots
I'm
stuff.
getting you doing an NFL mock draft next year, or we're gonna do it next year. It's gonna be a joint project, me and you.
The slippery slope, Barth.
I've gotten you hooked on the Patriots mock drafts. That's the claws are in. It's too late. You're not getting out now.
A couple of years, I'm going to be doing all 250 picks.
I did that once. Not alone. Geez. I did it with some other people, and we all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
We each had like 4 or 5 teams. I think it was during the pandemic. We were bored and we were just did it on a Google Doc. All right, time to wrap this thing up. There's supposed to be a sound effect. Why isn't it working? All right, that was supposed to be the.
This is why he's not a technical guy, folks.
Yes, exactly. That was supposed to be the NFL draft sound effect. Who are the Patriots taking 4th overall? Stamp it in. Final show before the draft. Who are they taking?
I think it's going to be Will Campbell. I think there's been enough insiders saying, look, he's the guy. Like I'm not ruling. They got a couch with like I wouldn't rule anything out, but like they're saying, I think you can read enough of the tea leaves. Will Campbell's the guy.
I think it's Will Campbell. I think Mike Vrabel has kind of left a trail of breadcrumbs where I'm ready to say it. That I feel like I can say it based off what they've said during his pre-draft press conference last week. Said he thinks they're starting caliber tackles in the draft. Said he thinks the 4th overall pick needs to be a player that can come in and start right away. You put those two together. Said that when asked about the 4th overall pick, mentioned premium positions, that needs to be a player at a premium position. There are 1, maybe 2 positions in the NFL more premium than left tackle. It's quarterback and maybe edge rusher. We can debate that. But if edge rusher is second, doesn't the guy who has to stop that guy, doesn't that make him third? And he talked about wanting to marry up best player available and drafting for need. So assuming Carter and Hunter are gone, which I think we can safely assume at this point.
Yep.
There is a real strong argument to be made that Will Campbell is the best player available at a premium position. It also happens to be their biggest position of need. I just think it all comes together. And I think they're drafting him as a tackle. Whether or not he ends up playing guard down the road, we'll see. To me, in the moment, it's the right pick. And I'll add this onto it. I would hope they're not drafting him saying he might be a tackle, he might be a guard, but we'll take him and figure it out. I actually wouldn't want them to draft him if that's their evaluation. I wouldn't say that should be the pick if that was my evaluation, because you need a tackle at that spot. You need a premium position. If they're drafting him with conviction that he's a tackle and they just blew the evaluation and he ends up being a guard, that's obviously not great. But like I would say in hindsight, they made the right move. So that's how I feel about it. If they're drafting him truly as a tackle, great. And I think that's what he is. And if they blow the evaluation, teams blow evaluations in the draft. We as Patriots fans know that as well as anybody over the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But if they're drafting him as a guard, well, then he's probably going to end up at guard, and then he blew the pick. So and maybe that's semantics. Either way, he ends up at guard. It's not great, but like, I think it depends on like I just hope the approach is they're taking him with conviction as a tackle. If they think he's a guard, I don't know. I'd probably take Armand Membu at that point and try to move him over, but I don't feel great about that either. Like that scares the crap out of me too.
Yeah, like I don't know about the thing about like regretting the pick. Like even if they end up moving him into guard, if he's a really really good guard, like even like call it an all pro caliber guard, like I don't know, maybe like Jalen Walker turns out to be the next Myles Garrett or whatever, or Mason Graham is the next Aaron Donald. Like if they miss on like that kind of player, then I guess you might look back and regret it. But like unless Will Campbell turns out to be a total bust, I just don't think he will be. So I feel like you might be able to, here, like we might on our station, we might, pick apart that pick, but I just don't think you're going to get down to like 3, 4, 5 years from now and be like, oh my God, I can't believe we took this guy and we missed on that player. Like maybe that happens. I don't know. I don't foresee it happening. I think we're just too far in the weeds on the guard tackle thing at this point.
And I'll just answer this real quick here. Why is Will Campbell different than history proves this? So I don't know what that means. Name one OT in the league with arms sub 33. Will Campbell's not sub 33. He's at 33. If you want context for that, Rashawn Slater was an all-pro with 33-inch arms. So there you go. So
okay,
that's it. Pre-draft in the books. We will be back. Friday's always nuts. Ideally, we'll hop on quickly and react to the pick. If not, we will have something on Monday reacting to the entire class. Of course, in the meantime, it's not like we'll be without content. 985thesportshub.com. You can check everything out there. Matt has a mock draft dropping on Wednesday. I'll have one as well, dueling mock drafts to wrap this thing up. I'll also have some other stuff coming throughout the week, including that, like, if you've read my stuff, you're familiar with past years, like the big board / make your own mock draft thing that I do. People seem to enjoy that. So that's back.
Sure.
I'll also I'm on tonight with Kendra Middleton. I'll be on tomorrow with Phil Perry and Matt McCarthy, and more big board stuff coming as well. So there you go, Dolph. We made it.
Right.
Almost.
We made it.
Draft. We made
Happy
it.
draft week, Barth. It's going to be a fun weekend, hopefully.
It's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a fun weekend, and then we all get to relax. So until the next one, for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.